So times are getting crazier and crazier, and we all know why, so there's really no need to get into that, but they are indeed changing. And change means opportunity. It also means that unfortunately some things are going to get worse before they get better. Among some of these things that will get worse, the balance sheets and cash flows of several companies affected by the new plague. You know what I'm talking about. But in this video, we're going to explore which companies are the most likely to go bankrupt based off their exposure to this outbreak, and which ones are in a position to flourish. Be sure to drop us a comment letting us know which ones you think are set to take a nosedive and go to zero, and which ones are positioned to thrive. And don't forget to like the video for the YouTube algorithm. And with that, let's get started. What's up, you guys? You're watching BTB Fusion, and I'm your host, Derek West. On BTB Fusion, it's our mission to inspire you to take imperfect action on your business and finance using the power of technology. Let's dive right in, shall we? We're in the middle of a pandemic, guys. A pandemic with seemingly no light at the end of the tunnel. Every time we think, well, it's just a couple of weeks till the end of this thing, well, the news seems to get worse and worse. At first, we thought it was just going to be 15 days to slow the spread. Then 30 days to slow said spread. Now it would seem that there are calls for even longer quarantine periods. I don't know about you, but I've been technically quarantined since the middle of March. It's going on a full month at this point. I haven't been to a gym in even longer. I must say my gains are starting to wither away. On top of that, it would seem that gym equipment is very hard to come by online. Man, what I would give to have access to a gym, be able to get out and head to a restaurant of some kind, or a sporting event, and maybe to travel somewhere over a weekend or something. Wait a second. If I'm craving those sorts of things, then more than likely you are too. And if you're as well, then probably some of your friends and family are. You see, that is what you call pent-up demand. We, the consumers of goods and services, have been effectively starved of certain goods and services for a decent period of time now. And with just passed stimulus packages, things like unemployment aid are being doled out like candy. The Federal Reserve is stimulating the economy like crazy with things like quantitative easing. Technically, the economy should be flush with cash. And now it might be the case with all this economic stimulus and bailout packages and quantitative easing that we're just priming the economy for an even bigger crash, and allows the economic condition I coined called hyper-stagflation. That is the combination of high unemployment and hyperinflation. A devastating combination that leads to massive socioeconomic unrest and an unraveling both the rules of law and civil society. Similar to Venezuela, Zimbabwe, and Greece during the early periods of the Great Recession. But that's a topic for another video. Like and subscribe and hit the notification bell as we're putting together something on that to drop very soon. But let's assume everything is hunky-dory as it were, or as hunky-dory as it could be for a world economy that's on lockdown due to a global pandemic. Which companies are in a position right now to really drop off the map? And by that, I mean go bankrupt, taking all their jobs with them and disappear into the ether. And which are really poised to really lead the economy back into a mode of normalcy? Well, there are a couple of things to consider. Like business models. Right now, any businesses that rely on quote-unquote bringing people together are getting hammered due to all the social distancing that has been a part of our daily lives for over a month now. So businesses like restaurants, concerts and music festivals, sporting events, even things like chain hair care places, spas, and the businesses that support and supply them are being positioned at the precipice, as it were, ready to drop off the cliff. Other businesses that are involved in and around travel, such as hotels, airlines, cruise lines, and even high-tech companies, including Airbnb, Expedia, etc., are also not in a power position as long as social distancing is a thing. And there's no guarantee that once social distancing has been lifted and people go back to doing what they do, that the demand for any and all of those businesses will be the same. The public, now utterly mortified of catching a modified superflu, may no longer want to participate in those activities any longer, and thus only travel when absolutely needed and not go to hotels as much or enjoy festivals and sporting events or anything of that nature. They could resort to only getting takeout from restaurants, etc. So businesses and business models that focus on bringing people together can expect to suffer, and suffer terribly, during this period of pandemic pandemonium, and even shortly thereafter. But another thing to consider is cash flow. All the type of businesses that I have just mentioned have other things to keep in mind as well. If your business doesn't have a means of cash flow right now, you are more than likely hurting. Well, not more than likely, you're definitely hurting. in a large way. As an example, we talked about travel companies such as Delta, Carnival, and companies like Expedia and Airbnb. So let's do a quick exercise here and get real with the numbers. Carnival Cruises, one of many cruise lines hurting right now, is burning through $16.6 million a day, or $500 a month to keep afloat right now. This is mostly due to the fact that no new revenue is coming in from new customers trying to take new cruises. And this trend has no end in sight due to the fact that the pandemic also has no end in sight. And again, even if there is an end to this pandemic, now that customers are scared to get close to each other, it's quite likely that the demand for these services will be quite muted when this whole thing is over. Another example, Delta Airlines, one of the largest carriers in the United States, I think the largest carrier in the United States, is burning $60 million a day. United Airlines is going through $100 million per day just to stay afloat. If you start looking through SEC filings and looking at what execs are telling their people about their customers and their flight volume, i.e. how many people are scheduling and taking their flights, you'll notice that they're saying things like their flights are 5% filled. And by the way, I was on an American Airlines flight recently. I know it's not Delta or United, but still, I can confirm that that flight was mostly empty. In addition to that, these same executives and analysts are saying that if they keep burning through cash at this rate, they will be dead by June, i.e. the company will no longer exist. It will go bankrupt. And any stocks that you are holding in that company will be worth zero. Now, if you look at Delta Airlines' end-of-year filing, you'll see that they had $2.882 billion worth of cash on hand at the end of the year. If you do the math, they will have burnt through $1.8 billion of that $2.8 billion in 30 days. And they will burn through all of that $2.8 billion in 45 days. Can you imagine burning through $2.9 billion in 45 days? That is hard to do. That is, unless you're a company employing hundreds of thousands of people, purchasing thousands of gallons of fuel, and maintaining large hunks of metal and plastic that hurl people through the air. It's not looking good, am I right? Not looking good at all. So in comes the federal government with a massive bailout. Out of the recently passed bailout/stimulus bill, whatever we're calling it, a massive $25 billion carve-out was made specifically for the airlines. Now, yeah, there is a process that the Treasury Secretary is going to make them go through, i.e. they must crawl on their hands and knees, beg profusely, and say pretty please with the cherry on top, in addition to performing any other number of humiliating tasks to get their hands on those funds. But like I said, they're desperate, and the situation is pretty desperate, and they more than likely will do as much degrading stuff as possible to get their hands on that cash, and thus save their company and continue to employ their hundreds of thousands of workers. Cruise lines are in a little bit of a different position. In fact, probably a more precarious position. You see, cruise lines are burning through cash at a similar volume. But because of the nature of their businesses and the nature of the United States labor laws that state you can't work people for 4 months straight, 12 hours a day, without giving them a day off, most cruise lines are not registered in America. As an example, Carnival Cruise Lines is registered in Panama. And because of this technicality, said cruise lines are more than likely not eligible for any sweet bailout cash. Not American bailout cash anyway. Panamanian bailout cash more than likely. Where will Panama get cash for this bailout? Probably from foreign aid sent to it from the United States. I'm not even kidding. They may get some kind of aid from their government, which got their aid from the US government. Can you believe this stuff, man? But if that's the case, more than likely they're going to have to sink to the bottom of the sea. Unless they register as an American company long enough to get bailout cash, weather the storm, then re-register as a foreign company to then again get around US labor laws. Actually, that kind of crazy scenario isn't necessary because the cruise lines had the foresight to borrow $6 billion from various entities, and thus, at their burn rate of $500 million per month, they will have enough cash to keep them afloat, pun intended, for about a year before they go completely bankrupt. So of those two business models, who is the most likely to survive? Who will have the ability to make it all the way through the crisis and out of the other side with a working, functioning business? With a working, functioning business that you can invest in. Keep in mind, this is the sort of scenario that a really savvy investor would look into and examine carefully to see if there is an opportunity for true growth. And before we go into this little exercise, keep in mind, I'm not an investment professional. And I would say this sort of thing definitely requires careful consideration with your investment advisor and not necessarily a 15-minute YouTube video, no matter which YouTuber is telling you this. Be sure to consider all risks carefully before you pursue any investments, particularly in this time. And each of the companies that I mentioned, particularly those in the travel industry, are extremely risky ventures at this point. Like I said, those cash burn-through rates are enormous. And the following is simply a thought experiment. and this entire video is for entertainment purposes only and should not be misconstrued as investment advice. And one last warning, do not invest money that you're going to need to use in the next 3 months or so. Now, with all that being said, if we take as an example Carnival and Delta Airlines as the companies for our thought experiment, both companies at this point are hemorrhaging cash like crazy, and only one is eligible for a bailout. And there's a possibility that it may not get it. Like we mentioned, Carnival is taking out loans to help get it through the next 12 months. Both companies should experience lower volumes of customers post-crisis, so expect their revenues to be lower, maybe even 30% lower each, maybe more, maybe less, we don't know. So for Carnival, if you take a look at its earnings and its revenue that it filed with the SEC for the end of the year 2019, it had about $3 billion of cash on hand. If you divide that by 692 million shares outstanding, that equates to $4.76 per share. Now, don't be deceived. I don't think in any way, shape, or form Carnival is going to even approach that revenue number in 2020. Me personally, I think they'd be lucky to do 1/100th of that. But let's project into 2021 or 2022, and let's consider that it's currently trading at, on average, $12 or $13 a share. So you're paying a price-to-earning ratio of about 3 to buy into the Carnival Cruise Company. Again, let's imagine we have a long investment horizon, and you're looking at 2022 as a point that your investment could mature. And again, keeping the numbers simple, let's say that Carnival has recovered to about $2 billion in revenue by the end of 2021 or early 2022. Divide it again by the outstanding shares, and you get a price per share of $2.89. Meaning, if we kept the current PE ratio of about 3, your stocks would be worth about $9. Now, if you purchase those stocks at $12 today, $9 in the future would be a loss to you. But what does Carnival Cruise Line stock usually sell at? What is the average PE ratio? Carnival typically sells at 10 times their earnings outside of any crisis. So a PE ratio of 10 isn't unheard of for this particular stock. So, if you buy in at $12 and the stock returns to its price to earning ratio of about 10, and you wait it out through all the dips and maybe buy in at some dips, and the revenue returns to something that's approaching normality, let's say $2 billion as an example, then you can expect the stock to be around $28.90. That is $10 times $2.89 cost per share. And on the high end, it could be as high as $43, which could make you 2 to maybe 3 times your money, which would of course be a tidy profit for you. Let's do the same exercise, but for Delta. If we take $4.6 billion divided by $653 in outstanding shares, that's a $7 earning per share. Since it's currently being traded at around $23 per share, that makes its price to earning ratio around 3.2 times earnings. If Delta's revenue returned to similar levels as Carnival's in late 2021 or early 2022, keeping in mind you have a long investment horizon, and we estimate those revenues to be $3 billion by then. In the case of Delta, if it returns back to its pre-crisis PE ratio of around 8, then at $3 billion divided by 653 million outstanding shares, that would be a 4.59 earnings per share. And it wouldn't be unreasonable for the stock to be trading around 8 times that $4.59 per share, equaling $36 per share, meaning that both stocks are being discounted heavily. So in other words, there's a significant buy opportunity in both of them. Now, keep in mind, all earnings numbers are just projections and complete wild-eyed speculation. Their earning numbers may never approach there ever again, or they could blow them out of the water. At this point, it's anybody's guess. I would say, though, that the travel industry is going to be hurting for quite a bit, though, at least through this year. But what would you say? Are you going to be looking to be traveling anywhere after this crisis is over? Either by plane or maybe on a luxurious, or not, cruise? Are you thinking of investing in any of these companies after this video? Let us know in the comments down below. And remember, no risk, no reward. Reward yourself with more future videos from BTP Fusion by clicking the subscribe button and the notification bell as we drop great videos every week. And while you're at it, if you liked this video, then like this video. And if you didn't, let us know in the comments where we were wrong. Is my math way off? Will all these travel companies go bankrupt immediately and no hope in sight? Or are all these companies going to succeed beyond their wildest dreams? Let us know. And remember, a goal without a plan is a wish. A goal with a plan and no action is a wish list. Take imperfect action on your business and personal finances using the power of technology. And we'll catch you next time. Peace.